Well, welcome everyone. Wow, this is so nice to see 28 faces. Some are new to me, some are familiar. My name is Charla Wright, and I'm the president of the 2021 Chamber Board. And it's my honor to welcome you all to the first Chamber Luncheon of 2021. Hopefully our last virtual one, but I'm thinking not. We all had hoped to be able to start our meetings in person again by this time, but we'll need to hold on a little longer before we can start our normal programming. As soon as we're able, we're going to resume our regular luncheon programming at our new host venue, which is the hotel at the Seven Cedars. One of the wonderful benefits of this venue is that we'll be able to offer a hybrid program where folks can tune in online or come in person as they are comfortable. Meetings are going to be archivable, and we're so looking forward to the day that we can network again together in person. In the meantime, we will host these programs virtually with a program designed to give you the opportunity to connect with other business folks, learn about issues that impact our community, and share news and information with Chamber leadership and staff. So now I'm going to turn it over to the program over to Chamber staff to run the rest of the meeting. And our executive director of our wonderful little chamber is Angie Scalf, and please take it away.
Thank you, Charla. This is all new territory for us, so I'm taking lots of notes about how long things take and so forth. But we're going to start today with our announcents, and you probably remember what that's like in a in-person regular chamber luncheon, but it's a little different here virtually. So if you have an announcement, go to the participants tab. It's one of the options on the bottom, and you can react by clicking on the clicking on there and raising your hand. So that's how we're gonna do our announcement. So if you have an announcement, go ahead and raise your hand virtually, and I will call on you. And it looks like Nancy Merrigan is our first person with her hand raised. So Nancy, give us your announcement.
Hi, everybody. I'd love it if we were all in person, but it'll happen. So we have a new marketplace in our hotel, and we're serving beer and wine and snacks and whatnots. And whenever we can, we want to do an after hours event and feature one of our St. Hillier wines, and we'll have the artist here to sign bottles and stuff like that. So looking forward to it whenever we can. That's all.
Great, thank you, Nancy. I will be there. Next on the list of folks who have announcements is Kevin with Clallam Transit. Kevin, go ahead and give us your announcement.
Yeah, good morning, and looking very forward to going out there to the casino and seeing everybody in person. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we have hired a consultant, you may have heard already, to do a comprehensive operational analysis of the services we provide in Clallam County. And we have, if you go to our webpage, clallamtransit.com, there you can click on the link for the survey, which is has its own webpage, clallamtransitfuture.com. And even if you're not a rider of the transit system, if you could take the survey, we'd appreciate it. We're just trying to reach out to everybody that we can to find out what we can do to get people to ride, how we can improve our services, and just all the above. I mean, we haven't made many changes in several years here other than adding the straight shot, which obviously was very successful. And but anyway, we'd like to hear from you. There's a further link you can click on to join the conversation where you can make more comments and like that. And outside of the survey, we're always welcome for comments on info@clallamtransit.com as well, which you can always put a comment there that we like to hear from folks. But anyway, that process is underway, and then we put together a project advisory committee of group of members throughout the community that we're going to review the project as things unfold and the data comes in. And so the information from the consultant will be presented to staff and the organization, the board, and help us prepare our plans for the future for Clallam Transit. And thank you. Glad to be here.
Great, Kevin. Thank you so much. We definitely recognize how important transit is to commerce regionally. And I saw something on social media, like, what if you could take a bus up to Hurricane Ridge? And I was like, yes. So definitely give Clallam Transit their feedback. And thank you so much for all you guys do. Next up with announcements, we have the fabulous and wonderful Ginny Holiday. Ginny, take it away.
Hello. Sadly, I'm no longer working at the Chamber, but excitedly, I am the new interim executive director over at Olympic Theater Arts. And I'm super, super, super excited to be joining that team. We've been doing an amazing job, like so many of the arts organizations through this time. I just wanted to let you all know, besides the fact that I'm there now, and that's where you can find me, is that we're currently selling tickets to raffle off, I believe it's 5 different baskets full of goodies from local businesses. Each basket totals between $300 and $400 value of really cool stuff. We've put a theme on each one. And so it's kind of our chance to bring the theatrical experience to your home. But where you wouldn't normally get a fun bunch of bath bombs at the theater, you can get them in the basket. So it takes it even further. You can get those tickets on our website. And there's going to be another fundraiser coming up in the next couple months. I won't tell you much about it other than it's going to involve up to 4 other theaters, both here on the peninsula and also in the islands. We're really excited about that collaboration. And yeah, we're all about collaborating right now and building those partnerships during this time. So if you love theater, or if you could see a way where the performing arts would benefit your business and maybe you can help us in return, we're looking for those partnerships. So feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Since we've got a few more people who have joined the meeting while we were doing announcements, if you have an announcement, go ahead and go into the participant or the chat feature, I can't remember which one it is, and raise your hand virtually and we'll call on you. I have Janet Gray as our next announcement. Janet, go ahead and tell us what's up.
Good to virtually see some folks. I do get to see some kids here at the club, so it's nice to see some adult faces, actually. I'm a bit premature in my announcement because of the frequency of these meetings. I wanted to go ahead and let you all know that we are incredibly close to opening our brand new clubhouse in Port Angeles. And yes, I know, so exciting. This has been a endeavor for us for more than 4 years, and we have completed construction. We're waiting on our certificate of occupancy. And I know that so many SQUIM partners helped make that happen. So I wanted to shout out to this community and thank them. I also wanted to invite you, this March, we will be hosting our annual Youth of the Year breakfast, which primarily has been to fund this new building, but it will be our virtual grand opening as well. So everyone will get an opportunity to see the clubhouse. We'll have a video tour of that and meet our Youth of the Year. Our Youth of the Year last year won the state competition. So we have the title 2 years running. So you'll get to meet Chelsea and our newest Youth of the Year, which will be announced next month. So stay tuned for information regarding that particular event, but that's coming up in the middle of March. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. As many of you know, I live in Port Angeles, and I've been driving by that construction project a lot, and I'm super excited to see it completed. What a great addition to our regional community. So looking forward to that. Next with announcements, we have Karen from First Teacher. Karen, go ahead and give us your announcement.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to say hello. This is my first time attending, and a shout out to Ginny Holiday when in her capacity with the Chamber. She was so helpful in our Say Hello to Santa drive-by event. That was wonderful success last December. And I also want to say I've already bid on some of those baskets for the Theater of the Arts, so thank you. And my announcement coming up is we've been reading in our parent Zoom meetings on Monday. I don't know if you'll see this because I have to take off my, well, I would have to take off my virtual background because you can't see, but we're reading Pause, The Power of Parenting and Living with Calm Connection with Alice Hanscom. And on February 22nd, at our parent Zoom meeting on Mondays at 10 a.m., she is going to be there in person. So young parents can talk to her. Oops, sorry about that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. As many of you know, I started my career as a preschool teacher, and this year particularly, we all have learned the importance of childcare, the deep, deep, deep importance of childcare and parenting in commerce. So thank you for being here and sharing that knowledge with us. Next, we have Colleen. Colleen Robinson, give us your announcement.
Hello, everyone. So good to see you. So from the world of Habitat Land, first of all, it would appear that one of our staff people encouraged a young person to play Elk on the Shelf, and they wound up winning. So thank you, Chamber, for making that event still happen downtown with the merchants, and we were very, very happy to be part of it. Two quick updates on Habitat. We have not built a house in Sequim since 2009, and in October of 2020, we bought 2 lots, so we will be building in Sequim again. Our intention is to partner with Sequim High School and offer CTE class where the students will actually get construction credit and work on the Habitat houses. And more excitedly and sooner rather than later, we are expanding space in the Sequim store. So come on in after February 1st. We have a little bit more floor space and some more things to share. The store is doing really, really well. Everybody during COVID is staying at home and rearranging and redoing, and they come to the Habitat store to buy new things, and then they donate to the Habitat store the stuff they want to get rid of. So we have been blessed in that way, if you can look for a silver lining of COVID. So that's what's happening in Habitat. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, that wraps up all of our announcements. I wanted to remind you all that there's multiple ways that you can share announcements through the Chamber. You can always add a hot deal on our website through the Member Information Center. And one of the things that we do is we amplify the hot deals through our social media page. So if you haven't ever done that, I highly encourage it. And if you have questions about how to use the Member Information Center or any of those features, reach out to Chamber staff. I often say that a Chamber membership is like a gym membership. You have to use it to get great abs, or in our case, great connections. So thank you all for this portion. I know none of us want to spend a lot of time on another Zoom call. So we did a lot of research on what is the most effective way to virtually connect. And one of those is doing small group breakout sessions. So we're going to do that now. We're going to take 10 minutes and split into small groups for some one-on-one networking. And I'm going to have you guys all start with an icebreaker. Now, you don't have to use my icebreaker, but I think it's a good one. My suggestion is share something that you learned in school that has been critical to your career. For example, a critical thing that I learned in school was how to be kind to people. And there are days that is very much stressed, but I really think it's important that we remember to be kind to each other. So I'm going to split you guys out. It's going to be random. You'll have 10 minutes. Don't worry, when it's getting close, I will send you a reminder and we'll all come back together and have our main presentation. So enjoy the time talking to a small group of people. And there you go.
Well, that was fun. Took me a few minutes to figure out how to find the room, to join a room, but yeah, that was pretty clever, Angie.
It's neat. I like it. I haven't done that in any of my other meetings yet. So that's, yeah, that was neat.
We're learning how to use technology in good ways.
You probably have to actually subscribe to Zoom to get that feature, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I'll look on mine because I haven't subscribed, but I'll look to see if that's an option.
They have some features that are available that are paid features that they're doing for free right now because of COVID, but there's a lot more features you get by purchasing a subscription. Yeah.
All right, looks like we've got everybody coming back in. We'll have 14 seconds. What I've noticed too is, one of the things that we miss in virtual meetings is that side conversation. So this really helps with that, but we'll get used to it as we go. And hopefully as soon as we're used to all of this, we won't have to do it anymore.
Right, exactly. We'll be so used to doing this, no one's gonna wanna actually go out of their office.
Yeah. All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope you guys had a good chance to connect with each other. Is there anybody that has a particularly great piece of information that they learned in the small group that they would like to share with the larger group? If that's the case, please raise your hand and I'll call on you, just like in school. We were just great students, weren't we all? All right, well, we will move on. Thank you for sharing with each other. One of the biggest benefits of Chamber membership is connecting with other businesses and organizations in our community. It makes us all stronger, and it's something that's been so missed during this pandemic. So I hope this was a valuable tool for you all. And now we're going to move on to the guest speaker part of our forum. So, and we're right on time. I'm super impressed. So we are really grateful today to have State Superintendent of Schools, Chris Reykdal, joining us. He has had what I expect has been an extraordinarily unexpected and challenging year, leading Washington State schools through this upheaval, adapting public education to the needs of the pandemic. So Chris, I have to give you and your team a virtual round of applause for digging deep this last year. I'm sure it hasn't been easy for any of us or perfect. I know we all want to do better. And I suspect that many of the folks across the state have seen your commitment as an organization to improvement. So thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is all yours, Chris.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. Good to see you all virtually. Like many of you, I'm sure looking forward to getting in my car and being around the state again and being in person. So I think that'll be a great opportunity. It has been an extraordinary year, and I won't even belabor it because you've all lived it yourself. Complex challenges to businesses. The virus is one thing, and navigating the complexity of the regulatory environment is just unbelievable at times. And so my hat's off to you all who have done that. If we did this every 20 years, there'd be a playbook, and nobody ever wants to do this again. But the fact that it comes around once every 100 years means, nothing really applied. Nothing from the last pandemic applied. We have these virtual tools, and we have the ability to engage in commerce digitally. So the competitive advantages for those who were already in those platforms, already had markets mature around that, it just kind of exacerbates sort of the who could succeed in this environment and who really struggled. And obviously we faced that in public schools right away. We had families immediately that had the connectivity and the technology, and lots who didn't. So just kind of a quick summary of where we've been and right where we are in the moment, I think would be helpful. And then as much Q&A as you want, I think would be the most valuable way to make sure you're getting some questions answered and have a chance to get some insight here. When this started, we knew immediately that this was an unknown. No one understood the impact of the virus from an epidemiological standpoint. And certainly none of us could have imagined the duration and the length and the economic impact. But the governor in our state has the authority to close schools, as does a local health official or a local school board. There is only one authority that can open schools, and that is the local school board. So there's nothing in law that allows the governor nor I or even the State Department of Health to say crystal clear, green light, everyone you shall open. So you watch school districts really struggle with this question. And of course, it's complicated by the fact that so much of the virus, particularly early on, we didn't know. We didn't know its epidemiology, its long-term impacts on people, whether kids would or wouldn't be impacted. Prior pandemics have seen devastating impacts on young people, and this one, thank God, goes much lighter for young people. So early on, we gave counsel to districts through last spring, build up your technology capacity, be prepared for remote learning as a backup plan going into this fall, because no one understood the complexity of it then, and we thought we'd get through that. Well, obviously we know better than that. Sadly, we've lost 400,000 Americans now. That number sounds like it'll get to 500,000 here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. The state of Washington in aggregate, I'd say from a health standpoint, did quite well. We're 2.4% of the US population. We're only 1% of the loss of life. So while we were hit very early, our public response to this and our willingness to wear face coverings and to physically distance and kind of do those things that are shared practices with each other, we just have a slightly better culture than the rest of the country around. Other places either took a long time to get to that expectation, or candidly in some places never got there. And they're seeing their mortality rates at 3 and 4 times the national average. Unfortunately, that's very tragic. What it did mean, though, is by this fall, despite guidance on how to reopen with very clear safety protocols that we issued in June and then again this last December, we had a lot of districts who made the decision to stay remote. We distributed nearly $200 million in federal aid in the first round to try to help. Thankfully, now we have 106 districts, approaching 110 districts who are open to their students for 50% or more. And those come in a lot of models. That can be all K-5 and their middle and highs learning remotely. In some districts, every student's coming in 2 days a week and then learning remote. In some districts, that every kid's coming in every day for half days. And of course, we have a bunch of districts around the state who open in the fall to all of their students, and they've remained open. If you follow the protocols, hand hygiene, cleaning, daily screening, physical distancing, and face coverings, we can significantly reduce the impact of the virus within the school environment. And there's been multiple research studies to say that. The CDC just published again late yesterday or early this morning another one. It's a more longitudinal look. Our schools are safe places, and you don't need a vaccine in order to start school in person. Now, it's not the same old. It can't be 35 kids crammed into a 900 square foot classroom. Our public health guidance just doesn't allow for that right now. That's part of why we've opened successfully around the state in parts and not seen the vaccine or the virus really take off and become the systemic problem it was when New York started too fast and shut down, and the nation of Israel started up and shut down, and we've had other countries around the world do that. We definitely took a slow and cautious approach. I know that that's been a frustration to a lot of people, but we were driven by the science, and it's helped save a lot of Washingtonian lives. And now we're getting our schools kind of built back up here to in-person learning. The moment we find ourselves in here now is obviously that headline challenge. There's a lot of folks who see new variants of the virus coming, and they see that we don't have everyone vaccinated, and they wonder when kids are going to get vaccinated. So we've got these headline challenges now that sort of have some people still believing that until all those things are in place, we really shouldn't open schools in person. But I'm going to reiterate once again, it is safe to open our schools in person. We're doing it all over the state. It is not perfectly safe. And when I talk to you, I mean that. It's never perfectly safe. There will be students and staff who get COVID, even in schools that follow all the protocols. What we have found is that outbreaks are very minimal. And remember, the State Department of Health defines an outbreak as 2 or more cases in a school of unrelated family members. We have very few of those. And when we contact trace effectively, we learn that most of the virus comes into the school and very little spread occurs inside of it because of the protocols. But we also know what to do to put those students in quarantine, really examine the rest of the students. We're keeping them in cohorts, primarily in elementary school, so that if there is an outbreak, we know how to jump remote for a particular class. Maybe it's a 4th grade class, but all the other 4th grade classes don't have to lose their in-person learning opportunity because we cohorted, we ate meals together, and we went out for recess together. And those kinds of strategies, quite candidly, we've had in place since June. And I'm super grateful for the districts up in your area that have followed that opened. They've done it successfully, and just tremendous leadership up there. And a huge shout out to all of our educators who go through this with real anxiety. This is still hard to do. Now, one false equivalency I hope to challenge you not to say. One of the hard things I think is when people say, hey, if grocery stores are open and I can go do X, Y, and Z, why aren't schools open? The one thing I would caution you about, as the public health officials remind us, is this is a question also of contact and duration. So passing through a line at a grocery store is a very different epidemiological risk than 10, 12, 15, 20 people in a 900 square foot classroom. You have exponential risk in that classroom. Again, if you don't follow our protocols for sure, and still some risk if you do. So on one hand, I keep reiterating to folks, we can open schools safely. We've been doing it. It's growing all over the state, and we're doing it with success. And on the other hand, the reason we don't just race everybody back is it is a very different risk profile. Kids are less likely to get it and less likely to spread it, but they do. And the older you go up in age cohorts, the more they have a health profile of adults. So elementary school, K-5, very, very safe on balance to open. Middle school gets a little more challenging. And by high school, they're mobile, they're hanging out despite what we try to do as parents. And I've got 2 teens myself. They're still doing their club athletics, which I highly encourage them to do, to be outdoors and be engaged physically. But it just means their risk profile is more consistent with adults. And then you're putting 20, 25 adults, if you will, in a 900 square foot space. And that's obviously a bigger risk profile for the state. So where do we go from here? Where we go from here is we keep opening. I would challenge all of you to communicate the vaccine as a backstop and a safety net, not as a must-have in order to keep reopening. We can open safely with our protocols, including our businesses. I hope the governor will continue to ease the restrictions, because when we follow them, we do very well by them. But it does mean face covering almost universally. When you step outside of your home, you need face covering on. It's the most impactful thing we can do. But the vaccine should really be thought of as a backstop. It's an incredible insurance policy. But if you hear folks say, we can't return to normal until we all have a vaccine, I would say be careful about that statement, because it's a 2-shot regimen. There's already variants of the virus that are emerging. We had cases in our state. The first vaccine maker, Moderna, and their counterpart, and those who are still in the pipeline with the regulators in DC, they're already coming up with booster shots for the variants. So if you're somebody who says, everyone in my organization must have 2 shots in order to reopen safely, well, then your logic holds and they need the booster shot. And then, what about the strain next year? And then what about kids not having it? And what about guests to the school? And you can kind of talk yourself into never opening. And I think that's a place we ought not go, because we've proven we can do otherwise. But it is challenging and it takes resources. So I said we've sent the first $200 million out in federal aid. There's another nearly $800 million in the pipeline here. The legislature is likely to approve that in the next 7 to 10 days. We will get most of that out very quickly. The money will be subject to more rigorous reopening plans than we saw this fall. We asked our districts to attest to their reopen this fall. So attestation, yes, I followed safety protocols, and yes, I've got a safety committee, and I know who my local health officer is. This is going to ask districts to do a little bit more, to be clear in their communication with us that their protocol will hold up, that they have effective communication with their district and their community. We want to build expectations higher for reopening, because we can do it safely. And then we can release those dollars, and they'll be very, very important. A quick thing about finance in schools. We have some interesting systems out there. And I think one of the misnomers is school districts get their budgets and they're fine. The state's already given them their money, and whether students show up or not, they've got all their money. That's actually not true. We're an enrollment driven system. So if you lose enrollments, 3%, 4%, 5%, basically within 30 days, your budget starts to come down from the state. So there is real financial risk here to districts for loss of enrollment. And here they've got this transportation staff. They want to get engaged again because they want to move kids on buses and get cranked up here this spring and in the fall. Well, we've got formulas in the state that will start to quote unquote punish districts even though they didn't necessarily choose to close this last spring and this fall. But the real public health guidance was to be careful about the reopenings. And so a lot of districts stayed closed or did hybrid models. But now when they need those transportation resources, the formulas will catch up with them and say, hey, you didn't move enough kids in the prior term, and therefore those historic numbers catch up with you for a while. So we've got some federal aid coming, but we also have some state policy to take care of while the legislature's in town. They've got to make sure that they secure our districts for the 21-22 school year and beyond. I'm very confident we'll have vaccines to all of our educators on the timeline you've seen established and revised by the governor. We pushed very hard to speed up educators earlier in that pipeline. And that's no disrespect to any other industry or folks who are really vulnerable. We obviously want them to be early if they're super vulnerable. But my belief and what I put in my letter to the governor, Secretary of Health, was you'll get a better vaccine rollout and a more effective public health response if you prioritize educators, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to put 500,000 shots in people's arms and then find out they all have to stay home anyways. They can't have their children, particularly young kids, sitting at home alone learning remotely. So reopening our schools to in-person learning, getting that vaccine expedited through the school system really rebalances the entire economic system. It allows us to get back to school, kids in school and working families to take that risk then to get back to work or to get back to business or to get back to their contribution economically. So we got part of the way there. We at least now have all educators can go at the same time. They were spread out over 4 phases in the early rollout of that thing from the Department of Health. They're now together. They're not next in line, but certainly sooner. The goal here is to get through about half of the 65-year-old population and older in the state of Washington. And when we get about halfway through that, then the Department of Health is really going to unleash vaccine availability for all of the providers that have been approved already to get to educators. Now, what that means is if you're 65 and older and you're in public schools, whether you're a bus driver, a custodian, a teacher, an administrator, you can get vaccinated right now. You can get access to the vaccine in your community. So they go now. All other educators come in this next phase, again, after we get through 50% of the 65 and older category. So this is going to happen. Sadly, we need about 300,000 doses in this state every week to be on the timeline of President Biden, who wants 100 million vaccines in 100 days. We only get 100,000 right now in the state. We understand there's an announcement coming here soon this week. The feds will be sending Washington State quite a bit more, probably not 300,000, but they're going to expect us to ramp up, and we're now poised to do that. So this thing's going to get on track, and that's what's really exciting. Got to get our kids back in school, got to stabilize our environment, get parents back to work and stabilize our businesses and our labor force. And then what comes for an organization like mine is really understanding the impacts on kids. Some have thrived in this, candidly. Most have not. Most have gotten by, and many have struggled mightily, not just academically, but socially, emotionally. And we have protocols about this. We know how to evaluate that quite effectively. And so with this federal money coming and a pile of money I'm advocating for from the state to give back to us, if you will, they've saved a lot of money by our lower enrollments and our lack of transportation, but we're challenging them to give quite a bit of that back to K-12 because we're going to have to ramp up support services. Again, emotional support, mental health support for kids. And there's just a lot of academic recovery for many of them. And it really varies depending on the community and how you opened and how the response was. So there's no cookie cutter approach to this, but that's a bit of our challenge going forward. So appreciate getting a chance to talk with you all. You know through lived experience, and hopefully you've heard me say here today, there is no daylight between economic success and public education. Not just because we're the largest workforce development system in the state, right? There's 1.2 million kids moving through our system on their way to post-secondary training and employment, but it also underwrites the opportunity for families to go to work. And if we're not in school in person, then that's hindered. And so we keep that in mind along the way. Public health first and foremost, the health and safety of our staff first and foremost. But I think we've proven through more than 100 districts around the state that we can open schools quite a bit at scale, keep risks low, and continue to do that. And that's exactly what we'll be doing all spring. So I'll pause here and take any questions you might have, and just really appreciate seeing you all even virtually.
Great, thank you, Chris. If you have a question for Chris, go ahead and either put it in the chat or raise your hand and I'll call on you. I do have a question in the chat from Amanda Bacon. She was curious to know what the state school district is doing to help with children's mental health during this. We know this is a huge issue. So can you speak to mental health issues?
Yeah, thank you. Mental health, like academic supports, I mean, we just see a whole child approach to this. So the expectation we have is not direct support. So OSPI is an organization that's actually a little smaller than it was a decade ago in terms of our scope. We support school districts, resources, policy, best practices, technical support. We gather research for them. So the expectation that we put on school districts is they're doing more than just evaluating student academics, but they're evaluating mental health. And then districts actually make some interesting choices with their state allocations, their local levy dollars, federal money. They determine whether they're hiring those supports right in their buildings and doing that direct work with students and families, or in many cases, they either don't have budget for that or they don't have expertise, and they actually partner with community-based organizations for that. So that is an expectation we have. That was part of our reopening guidance to districts. We will reiterate that once again. We will fight like crazy with the legislature to make sure that we keep building up those supports. What we call the prototypical school model in this state, it's the money that should fund a typical school, is so woefully inadequate for mental health supports and school counseling and psychs that it would be pretty frustrating to virtually anybody, because we all know now that you can't really succeed academically unless you really are grounded in a solid state of mental health. So we know a lot more about that than we did 20 years ago. We're asking the legislature to step up and make that more prototypical and more sustained. But in your community, you need to check with your local district on whether that's an in-house support they have or they partner with community-based organizations on.
Thank you. Next, I have Karen with a question. Karen, go ahead and ask Chris.
Well, thank you. Chris, that was awesome. And I realize your hands are so full with trying to get things going. And I did have the question about the emotional support. However, I also have a question about the future. Is there any resources being spent on evaluating our education model, the way it stands now, and how it can accommodate the future, and if we need to make some changes in our actual model of education?
I love that question. I'm grateful for you asking that. The answer is yes. And what I'm trying to tell policymakers is don't put us through another 2 years of studies on this. We've been doing this work for years. We have understood this for years. It's now time to take that risk. Some of it will be a little uncomfortable, and it's going to happen in two forms, I think. We just learned how to teach remotely. It wasn't great for a lot of kids, but for some, they really thrived. And for some of their families, they liked that, particularly early grades. They really appreciated they didn't have to pull their kid out of a traditional school in order to have a different model. They were attached and had a relationship with their school and their highly trained educator, and they could stay at home. So you're going to see more districts retain a portion of that in their model, where they're going to say, we're going to forever have a remote learning model for the families that want it. Or you're going to see regional models where they say, hey, it doesn't make sense for all of the schools on the peninsula to have that, but we should have a better regional model. We have a couple around the state right now, but it causes a family to basically unenroll from their home district to enroll in one they've never even heard of just to get that. And I think you're going to see that really transform. And that doesn't take any more studies. It doesn't take a pile of change. It just takes the will. The second thing I think you will see, and you will see it coming right from my office, is if you believe kids lost out on learning over the last 8 or 9 months, and I think many did, why do we keep tolerating all the slippage every summer for 13 years? We take an 11-week break for 13 years and effectively, move 4 steps forward in a school year and take a step backwards. And that accumulates over time. There's research about that. So coming out of this, you're going to see some grant dollars from us trying to encourage districts to what we call rebalance their calendar. So before we add more days to all kids, some definitely need it, every district should be thinking about rebalancing their calendar. We see this all over Asia and Europe. They don't take the 11-week summer. It's maybe 6 or 7 weeks, and they take longer breaks throughout the year. And just that simple fact reduces summer learning loss, or what we call summer slide. And over time, that accumulates to higher achievement for kids. So between better remote models that are going to become more sustained and permanent, and rethinking the entire agrarian school calendar, I think this is what I talked about in the beginning of the crisis, which is every crisis has led to big innovation in the state. I think those are two things that are coming out of this.
Neat. We also have a question in the chat from Janet. Do local districts have the opportunity to share and collaborate with other districts to put plans in place for reopening? Are there resources available to help them develop plans and overcome obstacles?
They do, and we have, what we call an educational service district model in our state. We have these 9 regional ESDs, and they're just fantastic. Every district belongs to one of them, and that's where a lot of that occurs. They meet in regions, so what makes sense in Seattle and Tacoma may not make sense for Sequim and Port Angeles and others, but your region is meeting together, and would encourage you all to kind of watch the progress of your district on that. They are sharing a lot with each other. When something really becomes a powerful practice, we'll put it in our guidance here for the entire state. And some of that is we saw innovative districts do work, and that's feeding into our new reopening plan concept here. So yeah, we have really great school districts, and we have really good regional leadership who help facilitate that.
Thank you. We're very proud of our schools. And speaking of being proud of our schools, we're also very proud of our students. And Olivia Preston, our student liaison, has a question. So Olivia, go ahead.
I actually don't have a question. I was just going to give you guys a little student voice on this. I know it's so challenging for us, especially. I just wanted to say that it makes me I feel so much more relief that knowing that you guys are thinking of every single part, especially considering that online is challenging for more than half the students. I feel like when I'm conversing with my peers, that's the first thing we talk about is, oh my goodness, this is so challenging, so difficult to try to converse with our teachers and all of our peers trying to collaborate. It's just an overall challenging thing. And to hear that you guys are taking in consideration that that is a step back in our engagement, it's so relieving to hear. And I just want to say thank you for all of your work. Thank you for going into depth on everything that you are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, that looks like a good place to wrap up our questions. Chris, I really appreciate it. I mined your website when I was doing the MC notes for this event. And one thing, that's the very first thing that's put on your profile, it says that you are dedicated to ensuring all learners have equitable opportunities for a high quality public education. And that is so admirable. And you got a lot of work ahead with that. I know we've got a lot of work with equity in our schools across the country. So thank you for all you do. Thanks to your staff. Thank you to every educator and support person in our school districts, from the custodians and bus drivers and school nurses to the superintendents and board members. We're really grateful for all the work you guys do. The next part of our program is our sponsor, and today's sponsor just so appropriately happens to be the Sequim School District. Dr. Jane Prine is here to speak with us a little bit about the upcoming levies. And so I will turn the floor over to Dr. Prine.
Okay, thank you. And Olivia, thank you for speaking up. Olivia is also on our board of directors as one of our student reps. So can I share my screen with?
You should be able to, yes.
Okay. It is not letting me share my screen, but is there somewhere else I need to go?
Let me share it for you.
Okay.
Okay, and just tell me when you want me to move through.
Oh, perfect. My name is Jane Prine, and I'm going to talk about, I am the interim superintendent for the Sequim School District, and I wanted to talk about levies today. And I also will also address, we have reopened today, so I would like to interject that first. We have our kindergarten through 5th grade students back. Our AA students are back today, and I was at Grey Wolf this morning, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was so exciting. It was like the first day of school all over again. I'll be going to Helen Haller this afternoon. Anyway, the reason that we are talking about levies, the reason that we do what we do is because our students, because of our students. I don't know, there's just really nothing else to say. It's about their education. It's about a vibrant community with their education. And we have 2 levy ballot measures that will be coming up on the February 9th ballot. You should have received your ballots by now if you're a SQUIM taxpayer. They were sent last Wednesday, January 20th. And the first levy I will be talking about is the Education Programs and Operations levy. So if we could go to the next slide, please. There we go. And, you know, Superintendent Reykdal talked about this. Why do Washington schools have levies? Because the state of Washington does not fully fund the cost of basic education, nor does it fund the cost of building new schools or renovating old schools, large maintenance projects, or technology needs. So we as school districts have to go out to our taxpayers and ask them to help fund our schools. And the EP&O levy, which is the Educational Program and Operation levy, is for our day-to-day operation. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So what everybody wants to know first before what are you paying for is what will I pay? And currently in 2020, it was about $1.29 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. So, excuse me. So we are asking starting in 2022 for $1.24 per $1,000 of assessed valuation, jumping up by year 2025 to $1.26. And what does that mean exactly? What that means is on a $250,000 home, it will cost you approximately $310 starting in 2022. In 2020, that same our same levy tax cost approximately $322. So it's a little bit of a savings for someone that has a $250,000 home, or if your assessed valuation has not gone up, it will be a little bit of savings for you as well. Okay, thank you. Jump to, there we go. So what does the levy pay for? The levy pays for approximately 17% of our total budget, which includes counselors at all of our sites. It includes nursing staff, student support for our highest need students, lower class sizes, which are mandated by the state, and with lower class sizes comes more staff. And also you need more classrooms. Highly capable program, and then our athletics, music, drama, after school, and field trips, and any other staffing costs not funded by the state. But we do have counselors at all of our sites. I know that was a question that came up earlier, and we do. And districts have been very, very cognizant of the fact that the social emotional learning and the social emotional health of our students is a top priority. This is going to school like none of us have ever gone to school, ever, for the last 100 years. So anyway, we can go to the next one. So in 2019, 2020, excuse me, what the levy that we currently have on the books that taxpayers are currently paying for, about 41% went to student support. Those would be, there's a real differential between what our highest need students need and what the state funds. There's always a big gap there. We also are looking at facility and school maintenance, and that would be upgrades that wouldn't be covered by a capital levy, because a capital levy has to do larger upgrades like roofs and floors and things like this. This may be just maintaining the building. Extracurricular athletics and activities, about 10%, a little bit for transportation, a little bit for technology, and then district support. So let's go to the next one. So that would be the EP&O levy. And I'm going to skip to the capital levy, and then if people have questions on either one of them, I'll answer that at the end. So the capital projects levy just expired December 31st, 2020. The SQUIM taxpayers were paying for it up until December 31st. So until you get your new tax bill, you won't notice that you haven't paid for a capital levy. However, this capital levy, because it expired in 2020, this one will not start again until 2022. So there is a bit of a gap there. And capital projects levy dollars can only be used for safety and technology infrastructure repairs, repurposing school buildings, replacing roofs, anything having to do with the building except for building a new building. You absolutely cannot build new buildings, and you cannot use it for day-to-day operations. You can only use it to maintain and upgrade your buildings. Okay. Thank you. And what will this cost? Approximately 63 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And we are asking for that amount because the levy amount will be about 3.6 to 3.8. And if you notice, the 63 cents really doesn't go up because it just doesn't increase. And so that's about $157 a year. And last year in 2020, the Sequim School District taxpayers paid about $167. So total, we'll pay about $467 on a $250,000 home in 2022. And last year, the Sequim School District taxpayers were paying approximately $489. So there will be a bit of a drop. Go ahead. So what will our capital projects dollars buy? Well, upgrading the entire video surveillance system, network system, and voice system district-wide at all of our sites. Replacing a roof, a heating system, network upgrades, and sewer connection at Grey Wolf. Installing a fire alarm system at Helen Haller. Replacing a roof, the gym floor and the cafeteria floor. The gym floor repair and cafeteria floor replacement at the middle school. And then replacing the heating system, the science and CTE classroom upgrades, a gym floor replacement, among other things. We'd like to resurface the track, upgrade the stadium restrooms. And we have a Parents as Partners, a home and school partnership called our OPA. And what we would do there would be to get a gym roof recoat, a new fence, and a water and sewer connection so that they would have, sinks and things in those portables. Next, please. So if you combine the two, this is what it will cost, about $1.87 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And as I said before, in 2020, people paid on an average $250,000 home about $489. And it would be about 467. So next, please. And this just breaks it down between the two levies. And so you can see that as a savings of about, $22 a year with the two levies. And as we can go to the next one, and it just says, does anybody have any questions?
Great. So go ahead again. And if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand. We do have a question from someone in the chat. Says, question was, is Helen Haller doesn't have a fire alarm system? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, well, we're upgrading it. So Helen Haller is kind of an older building, and we need to upgrade the fire alarm system in that building. Yes.
All right. Any other questions? Karen has a question.
I'm really not this talkative, but to me, it's a no-brainer to support these levies. And I do have, our organization does have a Facebook page, and I would like to post something in support of it. Is there something you have that we can post?
Okay, so what I will do is I can get you the name of the person that is a community person that's doing that campaigning. His name is Nate Adkisson. I don't know if you know him, but he's sort of heading the campaign, and I will somehow get that information to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we have another question. What percentage is needed to pass the levy?
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. I skipped right over that in my PowerPoint. So both levies, you need 50% plus one. And with just a side note, if you're, when school districts go for bonds, we have to have 40% of the previous election voters vote in the next election, and then you need 60% of those voters to say yes. So levies are a bit easier, quite a bit easier to pass.
All right, any other questions? Well, Dr. Prine, thank you so much for speaking today. We did want to share that historically, the Chamber of Commerce has avoided weighing in on any ballot measures, but with the critical pressure of the pandemic on our local economy and the state of our education system, we decided to get involved directly to learn about the impact of these levies on commerce and SCWM, and determined that, and this is not new information, that the economic health of a community is directly related to the skills of its workforce, and the skills of its workforce are heavily dependent on a community's schools, both in regards to recruitment of skilled workers, professionals, and businesses, and the development and retention of these students for our workforce. So since there is a direct correlation between funding these efforts and uplifting commerce, and therefore the SCWM-Dungeness Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors voted to wholeheartedly support this measure and will encourage our community to do the same. So that is a statement from the Chamber of Commerce. And if you have any other questions about that, feel free to reach out to someone on our board or myself or other staff. So we endorse this levy. And I'm gonna wrap up our meeting today. We're like totally on time. I say 12:50 for closing, and look, it's 12:49. Thank you all for coming today. We hope you will join us for upcoming chamber events. Our next luncheon is February 23rd, which is our annual membership meeting, where we will be introducing our 2021 Board of Directors. I will be giving a State of the Chamber presentation, as well as unveiling our new membership perks and features that we've been working on through the last few months. We are still looking for a sponsor, so if you're interested in sponsoring that luncheon, give us a call. It's going to be very similar to this format. We hope to be able to restart our chamber after hours in the spring. That's one event that is really hard to do virtually. We got to be with people for an after hours event. So stay tuned for more information about that. We are also scheming on our Citizen of the Year Award celebration in the summer. We are delaying this because we want to make sure that the 2020 recipient gets the full recognition and honor. And it was just an event that we didn't want to do virtually. We're holding out for a grand celebration in the summer. So keep your eyes peeled on our website, our social media, our monthly newsletters, and pretty much everything where we put out information about what's going on in the community. We will stay in this meeting, so if you have any questions or comments, follow up, can chat, but other than that, feel free to go about your day. We will put an archived form of this video on our social media pages. So if you want to let somebody know what happened today, we'll have that available shortly. So thanks you all, and we'll see you later. And I will stop the recording. So